Dad talk, dad talk. Everybody loves dad talk, dad talk, dad talk. Everybody loves dad talk, 'cause we love dads. Yeah.
Hi everyone, this is the NICU Dad group for the IWK, and this is our monthly Dad Talk video. So in this, we discuss different topics to do with dads in the NICU, and this month we want to discuss supporting mom in the NICU. So in this video we have myself, Sean Smith, James Whitehead, and Doug McMillan, one of the neonatologists at the IWK. Myself and James, we both had children in the NICU, and Doug, as I mentioned, has been a neonatologist with Halifax IWK for some years. I'm not sure how many. I think we should.
Well, I guess I started there in 2003, but I'd been a neonatologist in Calgary for several years before that.
1 or 2 years before.
You can tell by the white hair.
That's all the wisdom coming out.
Yeah.
So myself, I had my son Eli in the NICU in 2017, so he's 3 years old now. He was born at 24 and 1, so 16 weeks premature. My wife and I spent 114 days in the NICU. So in our time, we had to deal with many of the complications to do with prematurity, issues with the eyes, heart, lungs, more organs than I can remember. We're very fortunate to have come out happy on the other side, and now have another recent addition 2 months ago that is also doing just fantastic now, which we're very happy with. James, I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Sure, yeah. So I had a 28-weeker in the NICU. Her name was Tessa. Her name is Tessa. Her name was Tessa then, and it's still Tessa now. So that was back in 2013, and she was a little warrior from the get-go. We actually called her our little warrior princess, and she had to fight through all kinds of the same types of issues you were talking about there, Sean, with her eyes and a lot with her lungs. That was one of the main issues, was the development of her lungs. So she was actually on oxygen for pretty much until we left. We almost thought we were going to have to come home with oxygen, but we were in the NICU for 10 weeks. And those were some of the most difficult and trying 10 weeks of my life, and at the same time, some of the most amazing as well, because I think I said this last time. It was a very difficult time, but at the same time, I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like it was very difficult being in there, not knowing what's going to happen with your child, not knowing where they're at, not understanding where they're at, and but it really just, for me, it really showed me just how strong my son was. I never realized that this little human that started out just 1.5 pounds could endure so much and come out so strong. I'm getting ahead of myself. We should also introduce our neonatologist, Doug McMillan.
Well, thanks very much, Sean, and good to see you and James again. One of the things that we heard before when we met with other dads who had babies in the NICU is the tremendous responsibility that they feel. Not only the concern about their baby, but also how can they support the other members of the family, especially mom. And the healthcare providers, the doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, dietitians, pharmacists, etc., all do our best, but we do it from a different point of view than real families who've had a baby in the NICU can provide. So it's not uncommon for people to look to someone professionally for one aspect of things, but look to someone who's gone through a similar kind of experience for another aspect of that support. And I'm just wondering how the two of you felt in terms of your responsibilities and what you did to try and help. James, you want to start with you there?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, that's one of the biggest, that's a big thing is wanting to support and not be in the way at the same time, wanting to be there. And I know that, if you talk with any of the managers or anybody in the NICU, they will always tell you you're not in the way. And yet at the same time, that it's just one of the things with being a dad is you want to be there and you want to help, and you're almost desperate to help. You want to do everything that you possibly can, and yet a lot of the time it feels like you don't know what to do. You're not exactly sure what it is that you're supposed to be doing, um, because everything kind of feels like it's all centered around mom and baby, and rightly so. But at the same, but then you look at that and you're like, so what's my role here? How do I support? How do I help? And so one of the things I was able to do, was get stuff for Leah, for my wife. That was one of the biggest things, was just going and getting things, going and getting the breast pump. And you, like, I don't think it's like that anymore, but we used to have to hunt them down and try and grab them. We'd go into the other NICU and try and find them and steal them from out of there. Now this was a long time ago, so like I said, I don't think it's like that anymore. But that was one thing. And the other thing was, I cleaned that breast pump, I don't know how many times. So that was something. I think Leah did it maybe once. Um, but yeah, that was, at least when I was around, going and getting food, going and just going and getting things, um, was just, it gave me something to do, and it was a way that I could support Leah, so because she didn't like having to go and get all that stuff. And then the other thing that I found to be difficult, and yet at the same time, um, strangely rewarding, was when Leah was having to pump. It was something that I was with her every step of the way. So if she had to get up 2 o'clock in the morning to pump, then I would get up with her and I would be with her the whole time. And we would, back in those days, we had to. I'm feeling old now, but back when we were there, we had to leave at night, and so we would have to go home. And so we would take pictures of Tessa all day, and then while Leah was pumping, we would look at pictures of Tessa together. So we'd be up a couple of times a night, doing that. And so I think one of the things that went along with that was just emotional support, being able to support her emotionally as best as I could, which meant a lot of the time that I had to be sort of the strong one, so that she had someone to lean on.
It sounds like what you're saying, the most important thing is to be there.
Yeah.
And of course, that's a change from the traditional roles where fathers would often be excluded from anything to do with babies, sometimes for years on afterwards. I don't know, Sean, do you have some similar experiences and tips for for people?
Almost 1-to-1 felt like. Yeah. So my wife, same thing. Because my son was so small, he wasn't able to breastfeed right away, so we had to pump for the first several weeks or so, I'd say. And so I'd have the same role. She would pump, and then I would clean the breast pump kit every time. And we had the same issue where the breast pumps at the hospital were a hot commodity. They were hard to find. So we just early on said, all right, enough hunting this. We got one of the little backpack breast pump kits and got that, and we'd bring that along every day. And so 8 to 10 times a day, she'd be pumping, and then I'd throw it in a bowl, the towel and stuff, take it to the, at the time, again, now I'm feeling old, uh, the breast pump cleaning room, and wash them up and everything. And funny story on that one. One time, I come back from cleaning the breast pump kit, and I'm just kind of looking distant. My wife is saying to me, like, "What's going on? Like, what? You seem like you're lost in space." And it spent so much time in that room cleaning that breast pump kit that they had a sign that was above the sink explaining how to clean the breast pump kit. I had read that sign so many times that I had counted how many times each individual letter in the alphabet occurred. I could tell. So she's saying, "What's going on?" I'm saying, "Well, this sign, the letter A appears 27 times, the letter B comes up 12 times." She's saying, "We got to get out of here. We have been here way too long."
Well, both of you have referred to the old days, and of course, the being there is now facilitated at the IWK Health Center in Halifax by single room family care, and where fathers and mothers can stay together with their baby overnight. But the importance of supporting the breastfeeding isn't just a nicety. There's good evidence that the support of the fathers in many different ways actually contributes to the success of breastfeeding and the length of breastfeeding after the baby goes home. So there is a science that says then to be involved as the two of you were is a very good thing. And the interesting thing that on there that I heard you say, James, is you used to have a picture then of Tessa when she was, and you take that home. I've always felt then, but I don't know of a specific study that's looked at this, that when a mom pumps and she does so right near her baby, she gets more milk. And I think that this needs to be sort of a family experience on there, at least with the dad, the mom, and the baby, and should be viewed that way. It's true that the men can't provide the breast milk, but you know, I can remember saying to fathers, well, you know, and to the mothers, you know, you work hard, you get all that breast milk, you can probably put it in the freezer, and then if there's night after you get home and you want to go out with the girls, you can leave dad at home to feed the baby. And that was done in sort of a lighthearted manner, but for two reasons. First of all, to support the concept of the breastfeeding and feeding breast milk. But second, to introduce to parents that there is a life after NICU. And of course, there is the potential, I guess, for relationships to be disturbed by many different activities that occur in life. And we really want to promote the integration of families and do our best to avoid some of the potential separations of thoughts and ideas that might occur. Because the times that I've seen it in the past where couples have the most difficulty is when they're not talking to one another and sharing the same kinds of ideas and approaches to things.
Yeah, I know some of the families that I talked with while I was in the NICU, less researched evidence, but some of the mothers, they were there on their own. They were from out of province. The partner had to work, and so it was just them, and they were staying with some family or friend or Ronald McDonald House while they're here. And so, like you said, where having the dad supporting and helping emotionally and with some of the physical, cleaning the breast pump kit, helped the mom with breastfeeding. Some of these moms that I talked to, they just couldn't do it. It was just too difficult because it was only them doing all the work, and it just felt isolating for them. So I myself, I was happy to support my wife when she was doing this, when she was pumping, because not only am I helping to get breast milk for our child, but then at times if she was just if she didn't have any milk to produce at that time, or as you mentioned as well, life after NICU, if she wanted to go out for the evening, we had some breast milk stored up. I could fill a bottle. I could just reheat a bottle, and now I could feed my son. And that was just fantastic. It felt great that that was another thing that I was able to do because I helped my wife earlier in supporting her when she was pumping and later breastfeeding.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had about the same experience, James.
Well, I don't think we did we stored milk. I never really fed Tessa like with a bottle or anything. Leah breastfed for pretty much until it was time for her to start eating solid food. But that said, I mean, I think, like what kind of along the same lines of what Doug was saying, how, just being there and the whole point of it for me was that, and kind of like what you were saying, Sean, is I got to participate. It gave me a way to participate. So we were there together. We were in this thing together. It wasn't just something that she had to do. And I know there's some dads out there, like we talk to a lot of dads in the NICU, and I know there's some dads out there that they don't live close. And so they do have to go back to work, and they're not able to physically for whatever reason. It's not that they don't want to be there. It's that they can't be there for whatever reason. They got to go back to work. They got other kids at home. There's reasons why they may not be able to. So I don't know what the answer is to that. Honestly, I don't have an answer for that other than, we have things like Skype, and if we've got mom at the bedside, and if I couldn't be there, then I would have Skyped in, or I would have used Zoom or Google Meet or whatever, some way to try and video chat in as much as I could.
Well, the technology is there, and with the Shea NICU project in the NICU now, that's actually what people are looking to promote. Then not only for dads, but there are times when mom goes back home with it because there's other children at home too, and she can stay involved. It's interesting. We've got one of our grandsons in a daycare, but they beam images from the daycare not only to his mom but to his grandmother every day on there. So the technology is really developing that you can participate more, as we're doing here tonight, without actually being physically together. I'll just make one other comment. Then we talked about the good end, the food going in. Not quite so good the other end. But I think I've told you before. The first diapers that my father ever changed weren't either of his two sons. They were his grandsons, and a lot of that was because of society expectations where men were excluded. But if you're going to be included, I'm not sure that you have to do as you see on TV, decide whose turn it is. But you got to take all aspects of the child care. And I really believe that although one person may do relatively more than another on a variety of things with child rearing, when you're doing it together, it also helps prepare you for the times later on in childhood, and especially in the teenage years when you're continuing to raise your children.
Yeah, I met. It's funny the stories that you start to hear as you introduce your child to other people, and they start to share their own stories of their time with their kids or their grandkids. Met a number of people that some people that would mention how they were almost proud to say, "Oh, I've never changed a diaper," despite having kids and grandkids. And myself, I never understood that. I just thought, this is your child. Like, this is my child. I want to be an active participant in this. I want to be there to raise my child. So I know that was another role that I took when my son was in the NICU, that I wanted to be there to change the diapers. I knew that there was going to be the occasional real mess, and there absolutely was. And another funny story, my son was on 4 to 5 feeds for a while, which if your child has been on that, you would know, makes them especially pungent. And so this was very early on in his time, and he was in the little isolette, the little I don't know what else to call it, but the little plastic case that you keep them in to regulate their temperature while they're very, very small. And so he was on these feeds, and we had to open up the little doors to be able to get in there and change them. Open up the door, and just it's very unfortunate that at the time it was an open day concept, because everyone had to experience this. And but the fortunate side effect is my wife and I are both saying, "Oh, this is just awful," and we can hear from the other side of the curtain, "Yeah, I smell it too." There was some nice of that we're able to be informally introduced to other families through that. But
that bring us together.
Yeah, there were some positives to that, but I didn't want to shy away from these things. Like, I wanted to be there for changing his diaper, being there for these messy moments, because this isn't just mom's child. This is mom and dad's child. I wanted to be there for all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was exactly the same. I wanted to be there for everything that I possibly could. And whether it was changing diapers, doing baths, changing leads. I mean, I wanted to learn every single thing. I wanted to become an expert in looking after my child. And that was really my goal. I mean, I remember, there was certain procedures and stuff that Tessa had to undergo, that it was better for me to take on being with her during those procedures than it was for Leah, just based on how she was feeling at the time, just her emotional state and because the stuff that she was dealing with. And so, there was a lot of, one of the ones that I think was really probably one of the hardest procedures was when they were checking her eyes, because they have to take those cruel looking metal forceps things and force open their eyes. And you're just like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? And so that was, you know, you're standing there and you're wanting to protect your child from this horrible person who has come with these horrible looking instruments of torture, which is what they look like. And they're forcing open their eyes and pouring chemicals into their eyes to check them and test them, and that whole process. And so that was, you know, that type of stuff Leah is a lot more squeamish about than I am. And so that was, you know, another thing that I could be there for, and, you know, that Leah didn't have to. And so it was, you know, changing diapers and being there for procedures was, it was another way that I could be a part of what was going on.
And certainly there are some uncomfortable procedures that occur with being a baby in the NICU. The healthcare team tries to mitigate those in a variety of different ways, and sometimes with oral sucrose and that. But there's good, strong evidence, and one of the PhD nurse practitioners, Marcia Camboyo, has done a lot of work looking at mitigation of pain in newborns, and the parents being involved, holding the baby on the breast, and that is a very important aspect of that.
Mm.
Now, you indicated that you were interested in knowing a lot of things. I guess that's one other thing that I've noticed, that for some parents, they don't want to know anything at all about the equipment. It scares them. And there are other people, especially if the mom or dad's an engineer or IT person or something, they want to know way more about it than certainly that I even know on that. And so I guess we've got to be prepared. The fact that families come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and that on there, and as healthcare professionals, but also I think as parents supporting other parents, we've got to be pretty adaptable.
Mm.
We talked about dads on here. Now, there are occasions where dad's no longer involved for a variety of different reasons, but the need for another support person, member of the family or a friend, is certainly equally important. And I think that many of the same principles still apply to that. Be there and be involved.
Mm.
Absolutely. I know, well, we've chatted with families where there is no one size fits all. So there's some families in the NICU that might have mom there and mom and dad. You know, we've talked to families that have mom and, say, a grandparent, mom and grandmother, grandfather. They're, like you said, it's the support. Having that support just makes such a big difference.
Mm.
Because for mom, it is, and for dad, it is very emotionally overwhelming being in there. I found, especially as a first-time parent, just you expect maybe me being naive, but I expected I'm going to get pregnant, I'm going to go full-term pregnancy, and have a full-term baby, be in the hospital for 24 hours and go home. When that's not the case, that is very emotionally traumatizing. And so having a support there, whether it be dad, grandparent, uncle, aunt, brother, sister, is hugely beneficial. And so I think we could agree that is almost the most vital role that dad can provide in the NICU, is being just that support. And that support, I would say, does take many roles in helping with breastfeeding. And also, another one I know that we've discussed before that dads often feel the obligation to do is kind of block the outside world, be that barrier between what's going on in the NICU and what's going on outside of the NICU. Because even though when you're in the NICU, you feel like everything is stopped, the world is stopped, it keeps going. There's still work that needs to be done. There's still bills that need to be paid. There's still sometimes other kids at home or pets at home that need to be cared for. And so I know that was a role that I felt I needed to do as well, is to kind of block what's going on outside of the NICU, take that burden so my wife could give her full energy to what we had going on inside the NICU. And James, I believe you've said before you feel the same. You've had that. You felt that was your role as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. You know, it's you're a wall between, you know, what's happening in the NICU and what's happening, you know, outside in the outside world. And I've said before, you know, the NICU is a world in and of itself. As soon as you walk in there, as soon as you're in there, you're in a different world. And so you're constantly going back and forth and juggling, going back and forth between the NICU world and the real world that's still going on at regular speed outside of there. And I think I was just thinking while you were talking, Sean, like when I was able to be there, like when I look back on that time of, you know, Leah being able to lean on me emotionally and me just being there, and even for me to be able to lean on her emotionally to a certain extent, like we kind of prop each other up a little bit. For us, that was great training for later on down the road, to, you know, be able to support each other through, you know, whatever else came afterwards. I mean, we've got 3 kids now, and you know, they're busy. But there's lots of we, you know, that was Tessa was our first baby, but that experience in the NICU, for us, was something that ended up bringing us closer together, because, you know, we were both in it, and we were both wanting to support each other. At least we came out wanting to support each other, you know, on the other side of it.
Well, both of you have done pretty well on there, both in the NICU and subsequently. You know, there are though dads who have considerably more difficulty, and of course they need help too. That may come from their partner, from mom, but it may also come from someone else in the family or a friend on there. So although I recognize that the dads are often the buffer between the mother baby dyad and the rest of the community, I wouldn't want dads to be excluding someone else totally because they wanted to keep things too small if there was need to talk with other people. And so sometimes your buddy is a good person to talk to, or it might be not even your buddy, it's someone who's gone through a similar experience to what you have done. And I know that we're starting to do some things on there with moms helping moms and dads helping dads for the new mothers and dads who have babies in the NICU.
Yeah, and I would say that meets with thunderstorm going on. Hopefully, I don't lose power here.
Yeah.
I would say that meets with what I feel all of our goal is in putting these videos together as well, is to offer support to dads and to parents in general that are presently in the NICU that are going through this. I know that's my personal motivation, is when I was in the NICU, I was I could talk to family when we'd go home in the evenings, and they would ask questions and be well-meaning in their questions and ask how things are going, but they would just want to hear the bright side of things and not be less comfortable to discuss the less comfortable topics. Like, for example, my son had issues with his eyes, same as James. And so he also had to have that big scary machine with a big claw that was put on his eyes. And he needed, I can't remember exactly what it is, but I think it was steroids for his eyes. And so, like, that's a not comfortable aspect that happened. And so I talked to somebody about that, about how my son needed needles in his eyes. And they would say, oh, well, he's okay now then, right? And not because they're not well-meaning, but because they haven't experienced, not be able to as well empathize as I was hoping to get at that time.
Right.
I know that's what is my personal hope in being in these videos and part of this group, is to be able to empathize and relate a bit more with dads that are currently going through the NICU. It seems the weather doesn't want us to keep going, as we've all been kicked off a video at least once now.
Yeah.
But I think that brings us to a good stopping point for this video. So I think we had some pretty good conversation here, talking about how we can support mom in the NICU. And these are just a few of the things that have come up for us. This is not by any means an exhaustive list of many ways you can support mom in the NICU. But we try to put these videos out once every month. We go through a rotating list of topics and try to get a rotating list of dads with various backgrounds and neonatologists as well as various backgrounds to support our videos as well. So we should have our next video ready for you all in September, and we look forward to bringing that to you then.
Thanks. Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Sean.
You as well. Thanks, guys.
Have a good night. All right. Cheers.
Good night.
Dad talk, dad talk. Everybody loves dad talk, dad talk, dad talk. Everybody loves dad talk, 'cause we love dads. Yeah.